For more insights, we are joined by Dr. Eyal Mayroz. He's Senior Lecturer of Peace and Conflict Studies at the University of Sydney. Dr. Mayroz, thank you very much for joining us. So I want to start by asking you about the Israeli strategy. We know that 500 people killed, 1,600 targets hit on Monday alone. I mean, is escalate to de-escalate really a strategy that might work?
Good morning. I think we are effectively in a war, even though there is no yet ground invasion, but aerial bombardments. But the scale and the extent of the violence amounts to a war, which is at the moment indeed limited to Israel and Hezbollah. But I think 11 months of tit for tat. Limited attacks has now changed. The Israelis are saying that they ran out of patience because Hezbollah is unilaterally attacking them without provocation on their side, and now they are retaliating. But the fact that more than 60,000 Israeli citizens had to leave their homes a year ago and cannot return is making the Israelis say, something has to change because we can no longer sustain that situation.
Dr. Hezbollah says this is now a battle without limits, but with crippled military capabilities, their communication systems down, and without much of its leadership, can it still maintain its threat over the north of Israel? I mean, can it afford a war with Israel?
Well, I don't think either side can afford a full war, including a ground invasion, even though Israel still threatens to do so, but hasn't called on its reserves yet. So I think for now it's going to be limited to aerial assaults, even though things can change rapidly. Should Hezbollah really start firing rockets or more precision missiles into the center of Israel, into Tel Aviv, which it hasn't done yet. So it extended its firing of rockets to the north of Israel beyond what it was doing until now, but hasn't gone full scale into the arsenal of missiles it has that can hit the center of Israel. So both sides are still limiting the extent of the war, but we are getting very close to a situation where nobody can have control over retaliations.
Dr. Mayroz, meantime, Iran's new president, Masoud Pezeshkian, saying that Israel is laying traps to lead his country into a wider conflict and claims Tehran doesn't want to fight. I mean, would you take him seriously, and does he actually have any influence over Hezbollah?
Yes, I think the Iranians do have an influence over Hezbollah, and I think the Iranians are not interested in escalation. They have nothing to gain by it. The Americans have already advanced some of their firing power towards the Middle East or closer to Lebanon, and the Iranians don't want a destruction of Hezbollah, their main proxy there. So they have an interest in de-escalation. How far will that go, and to what extent will they have the say in what Hezbollah does is unclear.
This war, this particular one, I mean, against Hezbollah, has the support of Israelis. That's what reports indicate. But quite different when it comes to the hostage situation in Gaza. I'm just curious, why do you think Benjamin Netanyahu has decided to undertake this very risky offensive when Hezbollah quite clearly is a different proposition compared to Hamas?
Well, I think the Israeli public was divided over what to do in relation to Gaza and the hostages. The government, the right-wing government of Netanyahu, was against any kind of concessions that would lead to a ceasefire agreement and hostages swap. But in the Israeli public, many were kind of disputing that. Whereas in relation to Hezbollah in the north, given that the extent of the evacuation of the north of Israel for a year now, the government had a lot stronger support, both by the military establishment, the military leadership, but also among the people to do something more sinister and much stronger. I think the Israelis are forgetting 40 years of two major wars between Israel and Hezbollah that led to nothing positive for either side. So at the moment, the Israelis are basking in the glory of three, I would say, successful attack on Hezbollah, and are forgetting the costs of war. You can easily get into a war. It is very difficult to come out of it.
And Dr. Mayroz, President Biden and his team have been engaged in intense diplomacy in recent weeks and months, but so far have not been successful. The UN, that's ongoing, has urged both sides to show restraint. What needs to happen to de-escalate the situation right now?
I think the problem is that this is kind of a catch-22. The Hezbollah has locked themselves into a solidarity campaign with Hamas in Gaza 11 months ago, and honor and dignity are very important in the Middle East. So to back out now for them will be a great loss of face, along with the score that they are now threatening to settle over a number of assassinations. So that makes it difficult for Hezbollah to back down. And as for the Israelis, without a solution to the north, they are refusing to back down. So either side is in the same situation. The Americans are, frankly, very concerned about any kind of negative effect on the presidential election. So they're fearful of taking strong measures, if you like, other than two things. One, protecting Israel against an Iranian involvement. And the second is trying to persuade Israel not to go into a land invasion into Lebanon, which will obviously be destructive for the Lebanese population, as well as likely for the Israeli civilian population in around the center and north of Israel.
All right, Dr. Mayroz, we do have to leave it there. Thank you very much for joining us on the show this morning. Dr. Eyal Mayroz is Senior Lecturer of Peace and Conflict Studies at the University of Sydney.